Justin Choe serves as coarse grain analyst at the World Agricultural Outlook Board of the USDA. He is research economist on international trade of global commodities, including grains and oilseeds. His expertise lies in trade policy analysis, market forecasting, and policy evaluation. Prior to the World Agricultural Outlook Board, Dr. Choe worked at the U.S. International Trade Commission and the USDA's Foreign Agricultural Service.
Good morning, everybody. Greetings. My name is Justin Choe, and I'm an economist with the World Agricultural Outlook Board, Office of the Chief Economist, USDA. And today I'm very excited to be joining you all virtually to present on the 2021 and 22 marketing year feed outlook, as well as an update on the current marketing year, which is the 2020 and 21 marketing year. I would like to first thank the organizers for bringing me on and giving me the opportunity to share what I do and giving me the opportunity to connect directly with our audience worldwide. A brief outline of my talk today. I'll have a short introduction to introduce what I do and what my organization does, and followed by a feed outlook for the current marketing year. And then I'll have some special slides, hot off the press, on what we think will happen for the 21 and 22 marketing year and for the US. And I'll conclude my presentation by some closing remarks. The World Agricultural Supply and Demand Estimates, also known as the WASDE, is the key report that I work on at the Office of the Chief Economist, World Agricultural Outlook Board. It is available at the URL on the screen, and it is a report that is updated monthly, which provides the latest outlook on U.S. commodity markets and also global markets as well. Not to pat ourselves on the back, but we take great pride in being regarded as timely, objective, and transparent. And also, some others have described us as the gold standard in commodity outlook. So we take great pride in upholding that reputation. These reports are not just an opinion of one person or a computer program. It is actually a result of interagency efforts. So we have multiple analysts and different agencies getting together to discuss various perspectives on the current state of the markets and a forecast of the upcoming market. And the next update of this WASDE will be on March 9th, 2021. Please be on the lookout for that. And perhaps the greatest characteristic of this report is that it is free. So the PSNB Database is another resource that I would like to share today. It is available at the URL shown on my left. And it is also updated daily. It is a database that contains the estimates for various countries and commodities that we track at USDA. So if you are looking at big or small countries or larger or smaller grains, we have our specific estimates for each country commodity pair in this database. And along with that, we have tools for analyses. So you can export it into different spreadsheets or different forms of data. There's an API available for those who want to link it to computer programming directly, and also tools for data visualization, such as maps and other charts that can be created online. This also is free, so we encourage everybody to come and take a look. Another resource that I would like to introduce today is the World Agricultural Production, or WAP, report produced by my colleagues at IPAD, International Production Assessment Division at FAS. It is at the website URL shown next to me, and it is updated monthly as well. However, this report is solely focused on production and weather. So it focuses on weather-related analyses, including maps and other data visualization, such as precipitation and temperatures around the world. This is also free. And also, I should note that at this website, there are other links to tools that are free of charge that also have great value, in my opinion, for members around the world. So with all these resources, I would like to share the goals of USDA's Outlook Information System. And so there are three goals of USDA's Outlook Information System. And those three are objectivity, reliability, and timeliness. So the first, for objectivity, we pride ourselves and we want to provide objective, unbiased information for readers worldwide, as we want to eliminate any kind of information asymmetry between participants of the value chain. We also want our data to be reliable to readers, and we try to do this by basing everything on sound data and analysis, which we'll discuss a little bit more in the upcoming slides. And last, we want our data to be timely, to provide a fast flow of information, the latest information, to readers worldwide so that everybody can make decisions based on the most recent data. There are largely 6 components that come into play when it comes to the USDA's economic information system. The first one on the upper left-hand side is the attaché reports, also known as GAIN reports, which is short for Global Agricultural Information Network. These are reports that are composed by our local staff and also our local attachés in each country, and provide on-the-ground information that we would not be able to collect here in Washington, D.C. It also contains unofficial forecasts by the staff members overseas that provide us a different perspective on the balance sheets or different perspectives on certain components of the balance sheet for us to consume here in DC. We also look at official country reports, such as statistics and other reports done by government agencies. And using all of this information, we look, if you look down below, we conduct economic and trend analyses to help us gain insight in each market and helps us forecast what's going on. The other 3 parts, so U.S. world weather and remote sensing and travel reports, are also a key component to our information system, as this helps us understand what the production levels and the yield levels will be for each country. So we closely monitor large-scale climate change and also any trends that are happening worldwide, but also we augment this with remote sensing from satellite imagery and also on-the-ground reports from our attachés and local staff as they travel to the fields and different parts of the country and give us information that satellite imagery or large-scale models cannot provide. So all of this combined together gives us many puzzle pieces to figure out what is going on in each market and, more importantly, what is going on in the world. So our eyes and ears in South Africa are at FAS Pretoria. And I'm sure you are all well aware of Mr. Esterhuizen, Dirk, but I also wanted to introduce our attachés there. So James Higginston, he's the Agriculture Minister Counselor there, and Laura Geller and Kyle Bonsu are the attachés currently in Pretoria and doing work, conducting field reports for us to consume here in DC. Now, due to the pandemic, I believe all of them are working from home at the moment. But if you have any questions and would like to connect to them, the regional office website here is presented to my left, and also a company or the division email is also presented here. So if you just send a question or any comments there, they will do their best to respond to you. At USDA, for our balance sheets and our estimates, we have a principle, and that is supply must equal demand. If you look here, there are many components to supply and many components to demand. But our database is designed and our methods are designed that if supply does not equal demand, it doesn't work. The database will simply send us an error message saying something's wrong. And let's look at each component of supply. So for supply, we assume that there's going to be production of each crop for a given year. We look at imports that will come into that country, and beginning stocks, so leftover stocks or carry-in stocks from the previous year that will be available for users. For demand, we look at feed and residual, FSI, which is short for feed, seed, and industrial use, and exports, which for many countries to supply other importing countries nearby and also across the world. And last but not least, we have ending stocks to round out total demand. So if supply and demand do not equal, that does not, our system does not allow that. And also this principle is really interesting and helpful because it helps us with one, data robustness checks to make sure that each component is in line with other data sources that we track, but also helps us with estimating items that we do not know, such as ending stocks. Many countries do not publish their ending stocks numbers, so it helps us look at what helps us estimate what the ending stock levels will be for a certain commodity country pair if that data is not available to the public. So for estimating U.S. balance sheets, each month the ICC, the Interagency Commodity Estimates Committee, we all meet together around a table or now around our computers, and we discuss balance sheet items that we want to change or update. And a lot of part of this is driven by economic policy changes or any kind of additional information that comes in through data. We use economic models that to estimate what the changes should be, but that is not the final say. It's not a computer telling the people what to do, but rather the people, the experts around the table will look at the results and discuss whether this is correct or not. And the expert judgment has the final say on what the numbers are in the WASDE and also in the PSNB database. Analytic results for the U.S. are derived in many cases using a lot of data, and in the U.S. we are blessed to have a lot of data for our grain and corn markets. For instance, we have NAS, which is the National Agricultural Statistics Service, that provides area, production, prices, and all the items shown on my left, and that comes throughout the year. So as we get more information and we update our balance sheets accordingly. We also track the U.S. Department of Commerce for trade data, the Census Bureau, and look at any updates on imports and exports data for all the grains and crops that we track. And also we have other resources such as USDA FAS export sales, the AMS transportation prices and U.S. market reports, and also the Grain Inspection and Packers Stockyards Administration, also known as GIPSA inspections data, which gives us an early indicator on certain exports, that, and all the destinations. For estimating international and foreign balance sheets in our database, it's a little bit more straightforward. We use the latest information available on production, trade, use, and stocks, and components that we track to use in stocks in our balance sheet. We look at information sources, not just national statistics and studies, but reports from international organizations, trade association reports, and also, as mentioned, gains from our local staff that provide crucial information on the context and to what is happening in each local market. For each data source and data item, we conduct robustness checks and expert judgment applied to them so that we make sure that each stream of data is reliable and objective without bias, and we'll discuss that in a bit. So indicators of a good data source, going back to the objectives for the USDA information system, we apply the same rules and principles to determine what is a good data source. So we want the data source to be objective and unbiased. We want it to be reliable and transparent, and we want it to be timely and consistent. And I've put up a little graphic here to help understand what we want. Obviously, we want the target on the upper left-hand side, but we also want to be aware of any kind of issues that a data source might have, so that we can adjust our trust level and our analytical tools to determine how to use that data source. So for evaluation and forecast and also data sources, we consistently and periodically test ourselves for accuracy, for bias, for any kind of errors. And we want to find the bias and systematic errors that we have. Looking at the WASDE, the last couple of pages, I believe, are dedicated to showing the public that we are serious about this, and it shows any kind of errors or any kind of biases that we might have had in our estimates that are published in the WASDE. These are published monthly, so you can also check that and let us know what you think. And continuously, we cross-validate data references across multiple perspectives and multiple data sources. And we contrast that and we compare that using different multiple analytical approaches. And we'll talk about, let me expound on that a little bit. So for instance, if we look at an import number that we think is slightly off, we want to make sure that the total of all exports from other countries to that specific country is on the same page or on a similar magnitude as the import numbers that they are reporting. That gives us sort of an extra layer to cross-validate the number. And if the numbers are, there's a huge discrepancy, then we'll look into whether the data collection methodology is correct, whether there are any definitional differences between the countries, and whether it applies to the same principles or definitions that we use at USDA, and so forth. So those are the example of how we cross-validate and check our numbers as we use them, not only for the U.S., but also for countries and commodities around the world. So for South Africa, we use the following data sources as we find them to be reliable, and they are applicable to the standards that we have internally. The first one is the South African Grain Information Service, SAGIS, which it provides us a lot of information that we use for our balance sheets in the PSNB database. We also look at the South African Revenue Service, SARS, to compare the trade numbers to the information that is presented in SAGIS. My understanding is that they're slightly different, but we track it nonetheless. So as we use a third-party service that collects trade data from all around the world, so we can compare that to other countries' data sources as well. We also closely follow the CEC, the Crop Estimates Committee of the Ministry of Agriculture, Forestry, and Fisheries in South Africa, as their crop surveys and their crop reports are very important for us to estimate the yield and the acreage and ultimately the production of each crop for South Africa. We also, I believe, use Producer Independent Crop Estimation System by SIQ for remote sensing and other as an additional resource to help us understand the production levels in South Africa for many different crops. I put down and more a little bit as well. There are some other reports and other data sources that we look at. But if there's anything else that the audience members would like to suggest to us, we are always open for a conversation, and we would appreciate any kind of feedback for that. All right, here are some other USDA resources that you might be interested in. Once again, if you're interested in the gain reports and the attaché reports, not just for South Africa and Pretoria, but also for around the world to understand what the global market is, I encourage you to visit gain.fas.usda.gov. And also for FAS, our Foreign Agricultural Service colleagues, they publish a lot of different reports monthly and also periodically. So all the reports are at the second bullet, which is at fas.usda.gov/data. And if you click on search, you'll see all the latest reports related to international trade in that section. ERS, which is short for Economic Research Service, that agency has a lot of economists, and they provide a slightly more in-depth outlook report found at the URL on my left. You can find a little bit more on what behind the curtains thinking on why any kind of changes occurred or other considerations that we take into account when it comes to updating the WASDE. And last but not least, the WASDE briefings at the end, those are exactly the same slides that we present to the secretary or his or her designate. It contains the changes or key points that we have for each WASDE every month. So we also encourage you to visit our website and take a look if you're interested. So now let's move on to the outlook for corn. And for today, I'll have a special emphasis and focus on corn today. And let's start with the assumptions. So for our assumptions, unless it is in the middle of the planting season, we always assume normal weather and normal growing conditions, especially for the U.S., which I'll discuss at the last part of my presentation. We'll use trend yields derived from a linear model, and we will update them as the year unfolds, so to speak. We assume that all current policies will be in place unless they are explicitly noted to be changed or phased out. And we have no changes in our overarching assumptions and approach, especially looking at the new year in terms of the assumptions that we have for the bindingness of certain trade policies or policy measures around the world, which helps us forecast better. For macroeconomic and economy-wide assumptions, we expect or we project a substantial rebound in U.S. and global economic growth this year, as we assume that COVID-19 and the pandemic is more under control, and as the proliferation of vaccines help business activities come back to quote-unquote normal. And normal is in quotation marks because, as many organizations and models will tell you, despite recovery, global GDP levels may not be at the same level as we had predicted pre-COVID. So looking at some long-term trends, let's start with production. So world production of corn continues to grow. If you think about it, 20 years ago in the 2000 and 2001 marketing year, global production was slightly under 600 million tons. Now we're expecting it to exceed 1 billion metric tons worldwide. And that has been driven by expansion in countries and regions all around the world. And we expect this to be driven, one, not only by acreage, but also, two, with increasing yields worldwide as more and more people adopt more modern techniques. Increasing number of countries are adopting biotechnology and other developments in terms of agronomy and growing practices around the world. Looking at the production forecast for marketing year 2020 and 21, which is the current marketing year, we expect the United States to be the largest producer of corn at 360.2 million metric tons, followed by China and Brazil. Looking at key exporters, Brazil and Ukraine are looking at sizable crops, so we expect them to, despite some weather issues, let's say in Ukraine, we expect a lot of exports of corn to be happening in the current marketing year and potentially in the upcoming marketing year as well. We currently have South Africa production pegged at 16.5 million metric tons for the marketing year 2020 and 21, which by our definition and our database is starting in May 2021. So looking forward to and we understand that there's going to be more information, let's say from the CEC, and we will update our estimates and our projections accordingly as more information comes in. Now, why is feed use rising? It's a chicken and egg question, but the large part of it is the rise of feed use. And as you can see here, feed use of corn is rising also across the board in many regions, if not all regions around the world. And that's as economic growth and consumers develop a taste for meat products and livestock products. They want to have more affordable and cheaper meat, and that leads to more feed use of corn. And corn is a very good feed grain for many livestock producers based on its availability and its affordability. So looking at our estimates for feed consumption or feed and residual consumption, we look at the biggest countries here are the major meat producing countries of the world. So with China, with rebounding swine herd from their African swine fever endemic, we project China to feed 206 million metric tons, which I believe is a record this year, in the current 2020 and 21 marketing year. The US, Brazil, and the EU, and I have an asterisk there because that means EU 27 plus UK. We'll be breaking out the UK separately in May, I believe. But all major meat producing countries here are also major feed users. And as more countries expand their livestock industries or poultry industries, we expect to see corn feeding estimates go up as well. So with growing feed demand, we see that more and more countries are importing corn to meet this domestic feed demand. And to meet this increased import demand, we're seeing a lot of growth in exports as well. As seen in this chart over 30 years, corn trade is growing rapidly, and this is reflecting strong demand globally, as you can see from the growth of a little over 60 million metric tons in 1990, and 30 years later, we are almost looking at 180 million metric tons worldwide. So this reflects strong demand worldwide, and also it shows a lot of export and import opportunities for livestock feeders and also for corn growers worldwide. Looking at exports, we expect the United States to be the largest exporter in the 2020 and 21 marketing year, projected at 66 million metric tons this marketing year. Brazil and Argentina and Ukraine, all major exporters, will follow that. And South Africa is projected at 3 million metric tons at the moment, although we do see further opportunities for South Africa to expand, as seen with additional trade going on with countries such as South Korea. And we'll discuss that in a bit. So for imports, many countries rely on imported corn, and even large corn producers domestically also rely on a lot of imported corn, such as the EU, Mexico, and even China. So if you look at the trade relationships, oftentimes the trade partners are determined by geography. So if you're close to each other, it's likely that you would be sending corn over there. However, if prices change or if there's a better deal to be had, I'm sure that those relations are easily changed. This year, China is forecast to be the largest importer of corn this marketing year, at 24 million metric tons. And due to the strong demand by China, I believe that opens up more opportunities for other exporters, such as South Africa. So looking at the recent development in China's grain imports, let's focus on the left chart for now. This is our marketing year import estimates of key grains, which includes corn, barley, sorghum, wheat, and soybeans. And look at the size of the red circle. It is bigger than any other circle that we've seen in recent years, which means that we expect China to be importing a lot of grains and a lot of feedstuffs to China in this marketing year, which provides a lot of opportunities. Looking at the right chart, this is good news for U.S. exporters as we looked at the calendar year imports of 2020 of feed grains and feedstuffs, which includes corn, barley, sorghum, DDGS, and field peas. And looking at the total size of that circle as well, in a COVID year, we expect that it is likely that circle will be even bigger in 2021. And as you can see on the x-axis and the y-axis, a large part of that is being supplied by U.S. corn and U.S. sorghum, which means there will be some level of a cascading effect, let's say, that markets that used to import from the U.S. will not be able to do so due to increased competition. Therefore, other exporters might have more opportunities into markets that they had not been seeing for the last couple of years. So looking at stock numbers, China is by far the largest corn stockholder in the world at 196, and this is derived from China official statistics, as there are no official estimates from the Chinese government on what their level of stocks are. Using the National Bureau of Statistics number, we expect China to have the largest amount of corn stocks, and we continue to evaluate this number as we see more information and have more context provided by our colleagues worldwide. The U.S. ending stocks are projected at 38 million metric tons, which is the lowest since 2014-15, which is near a drought year. And with the stocks coming down, that should create some price opportunities, which I'll discuss in about 3 or 4 slides. However, if you look at the stock levels for foreign markets outside of China, so these are markets outside of the U.S. and outside of China, stock levels are going down as well for both soybeans and corn. And since we're talking about corn, if you look at the orange chart on the left, stock levels and also the stocks to domestic use ratios are being pulled down, meaning there's stronger demand than there are supplies, meaning that there are likely to be a strong import demand or strong demand for supplies worldwide, once again supporting our hypothesis that there will be more opportunities around. So looking at the corn and soy markets, and we have a sneak preview of what our estimates for the upcoming 2021 and 22 marketing years, we expect corn and soy markets to continue to be tight. As you can see on the right-hand side, where with the diagonal shaded bars, we expect stock levels and the stock-to-use ratios for these two commodities to ease up slightly. However, not by much, meaning that there will continue to be tightness in the market for one of the biggest suppliers in the world, the United States. What does this mean? It means that prices will be supported higher, as we can see here, for both wheat, corn, and soybeans. And these are farmer prices in central Illinois and Kansas City. And I'm personally a basketball fan, but if you ask me, these look like hockey sticks with rapid ascensions in the last 6 months. And this phenomenon is not just for U.S. providers, it's also true for our key competitors and key growers, such as Brazil. I've tried to show here the price levels that farmers received in Brazil in the local currency and controlling for any kind of inflation changes. And if you look here, the last couple of months have been great for both soybean and corn farmers in Brazil as well, meaning that there's a lot of economic incentive for our acreage to go up. And that is why it is likely that we'll probably see a bump in acreage in the upcoming marketing year. Fresh off the press, we expect the combined acreage of U.S. wheat, corn, and soybean to go up this year at 227 million acres. And among that, we believe that corn acres will hit 92 million acres, bumping up production slightly, which I'll share more in the balance sheet in a couple of slides. So we expect corn acreage to bump up by strong prices of corn supported by strong global demand. As you can see on the left-hand side, key importers such as China have very high corn prices compared to key exporters such as the US and Brazil. And therefore, that will continue to support some prices, as you can see on the right-hand side, which compares 4 major exporters of corn worldwide. As you can see, in the last 6 months, prices have risen significantly. And while this might change in the next couple of months as the South African crop comes down, it is likely to support some acreage bump in key producers. So looking at the corn balance sheet for 2021 and 22, we expect once again an increase to 92 million acres in the U.S., and with a yield assumption at 179.5 bushels per acre, we are looking at a 15.2 billion bushel production year, which should be around slightly above 383 million metric tons. Exports, we expect to continue to be strong at 2.65 billion bushels on strong international demand. And with a rebounding livestock industry after COVID-19 subsides, we expect feed demand to go up slightly, as well as industrial use, which a large part of it is ethanol use. We expect a 5% bump year over year on ethanol use, so we have a slightly higher FSI use as well. Even with a larger crop, ending stocks are only up by 50 million bushels at 1.5 billion, and that will make the stocks to use ratio virtually unchanged. Therefore, with increased competition and rebounding competitors, we expect the average farm price in the U.S. to go down slightly to $4.20 per bushel, which is 10 cents lower than our estimate for the current marketing year in 2020 and 21. So this wraps up most of the information that I'd like to disclose today. A couple of things before I log off. First of all, even with high prices, corn remains affordable and available compared to other feed grains around the world. As you can see here, a comparison with soybeans, wheat, and sorghum and barley, corn still remains a very efficient and affordable feedstuff, meaning that import demand is likely to continue. Looking at the US, and this is the price spreads between the major exporters. And this shows a price spread is, if the line is above the red horizontal line, that means the US is cheaper. If it is below, that means the US is slightly more expensive. And right now, the US is quite price competitive compared to our competitors in Argentina, Ukraine, and Brazil. However, as the crop comes back on and more supplies are found in South America, that price relationship may change quickly. So in conclusion, for the current marketing year, the 2021 marketing year, we expect global production to reach 1.13 billion tons in 2020 and 21. Imports and exports are both at a record, I believe, at 179 and 186 respectively. We expect feed and residual to grow slightly, 2% up from the previous marketing year. And the stock levels, as mentioned, are drawn down globally and would be the lowest level since 2014 and 15. And as prices are sharply higher, this may support a strong area increase in South Hemisphere producers in South America. For the upcoming marketing year, we only have forecast numbers or estimates for the U.S. at the moment, but we expect U.S. corn acreage to go up to 92 million acres and driving up production up 7% year over year. Exports and domestic use are projected up on strong international demand and rebounding feed and ethanol use. Stocks are slightly up, but as mentioned, stocks-to-use ratio are virtually unchanged, and our price projection for the next marketing year is slightly lower than the current at $4.20 per bushel. So that wraps up my presentation for today. I understand there was a lot of information and you might have a lot of questions. Please feel free to email me or reach out to my colleagues at FAS Pretoria. Thank you very much.